Friends, welcome to the continuation of our conversation on race tonight. We want to say personally, from all of us, thank you for joining us.
That's absolutely true. We want to also thank again our panelists for taking the time to have this difficult but crucial discussion.
Yeah, let's jump right back into some of the topics that we really didn't have time to address during our televised conversation. With that, we'll send it right over to Birja.
All right, well, Taylor, we're coming back to you first here. So we talked at length about the new use of force policy, and one of those changes was a ban on no-knock warrants. And you said that officers wanted this too. What was the reason behind that?
Well, you know, our officers are good at looking at things not only here in Indianapolis but across the country. They see issues like with Breonna Taylor and those types of things, and they see how it impacts the community and the danger actually that it puts themselves in as well. And so I think they realize that there might be other ways of going about conducting warrants, no-knock warrants. You know, part of the concern is you're losing evidence that might be crucial to a case, and that would be the reason why you would do that. Or you know, a person or a group could be set up to retaliate against anyone coming through a door. So they care about their safety as well, and I think they realize that they're smart enough to know that there's other ways to go about doing that. And so when we heard that, we moved pretty quick on it. We knew the community had a concern about those things, and so we moved pretty quick to make that happen, and I think it's going to be working out well.
So I know that's only one of a series of just changes you've made recently. Were there any other new policies you put in place that maybe officers said, hey, we need to do this?
Well, I think if you look through our new use of force policy, which is on our website, as you look through it, you'll realize there's some subtle changes and some larger changes that we've put in place. I appreciate Rick Snyder and their willingness to look over that policy. We didn't always agree on everything, but I think for the most part we did. And the other thing is, you know, I know community is interested in having a say in it. So one of the things we put in that policy is an annual review of it to take into account the different things that are changing not only here in Indianapolis but across the country. And if we can implement those things to a point where our officers feel good about it and the community feels good about it, we're both on the same page, then we'll do that. We'll review that on an annual basis. So I'm hoping that will make people feel better about the ability to change that policy as we move forward if it needs to be changed.
So two quick follow-ups to that. Are there any other changes that you expect in training or policies? And also, Tanya with the Indiana Black Expo mentioned something that sometimes new chiefs come in and bring in different policies. They stay, that chief leaves, and so does those policies. So how do we tackle that issue too?
Well, you know, I'm hoping to be in this position for at least throughout the mayor's term, so that would give me another 3 years at least. So unless there's a need to change it, I don't plan on changing that policy. Now, who comes in after me may have some different views, but honestly, I think the fact that people are more involved with our policy and more suggestions will have to answer to those things. So I think it's safe where it is. I think I know the leadership that exists now and any potential future leadership share those same kind of thoughts. We honestly all want to get along with everybody. And this policy, I think, starts moving us in that right direction. If we go off track for some reason, then obviously we'll have to come back and look at it and see about making changes. But the goal is to make a policy that everyone can be happy with. Officers feel safe, and the community feels safe, and we keep those kind of policies moving.
Let's go back a bit here to the George Floyd video that some people really watch it and have said it is an example of disproportionate police brutality toward the black community. Now, you are a black man. You put on and take off the blue uniform. And you've also said in the past that early on in your career, you really didn't see racial issues within law enforcement, but likely they did exist. Now, at this point where you are now, have you or do you see anything? And how do you deal with the issues of race and law enforcement personally?
Well, I will tell you, I was very, my eyes were opened when I saw the hurt in the eyes of people who came down and peacefully protested. We hadn't really experienced that here in Indianapolis. I think intellectually, I always knew there were issues, and you get glimpses of them from here and there. But with that number of people, really helped me to realize how deep this problem was or is. So I think in me it renewed a desire to make sure that we get on top of that. And not just as a black man, as a leader of a large organization, a large police department. I think I stand with other chiefs across the country that have seen things and realize that there do need to be some changes, but I think we're totally capable of doing those things. So I'm honestly looking forward to continuing to have the conversations that we need to have to get us on the right track.
I want to stay on the topic, though, of police reform, and I want to circle back to Wayne. Wayne, how do we balance this ever-increasing need to keep people safe and with the emerging need for reform when it comes to police tactics?
I would say, partnering, bringing people to the table. A little less than 3 years ago, what we did was we created our de-escalation commission. And what our de-escalation commission did was we looked at our training for all of our IUPD officers, and we noticed that it was sufficient, but we could do better. So over an 18-month period, we looked at our policies and practices and whatnot, and we know that we had a need for mental health training, a real need for that. Also, when officers respond to a volatile situation, we incorporated this training called ACAT, which is Integration, Communication, Assessing the Tactics, to give officers another resource so they can respond to the sensitive population we serve and be culturally responsive to that population, not just for our students, but we have officers across the state of Indiana that police areas like the city of Indianapolis, the city of South Bend, the city of Gary, originally where I'm from. So this was very important for us to get that buy-in, but also involve partners that's not police with our community members and also our cultural centers, as well as diversity directors and things like that, as well as city partners. And now that we're coming up on our 3-year review, we're doing our second phase of it, where we're looking at our hiring and training, our policies and practices, and being more of a public facing as far as our data. We are part of a PDI agency, which is a public data initiative. We have 3 data sets out there and 15 in beta testing. So we always looking at training for our officers so they could better respond to the populations we serve. I had an opportunity to go out to New York City PD and do a fellowship with them for a week to learn more about the Eric Gardner situation as far as prohibiting chokeholds, and also Laquan McDonald and just different things like that has really helped us get better as an agency. But none of that means anything unless we get the buy-in from our officers who are out there responding to the calls as well and bringing them into the table. So we involved our union as well and gave them a seat at the table to discuss these issues with our partners.
And because that's a big portion of all this, getting officers to buy in, getting departments to buy in. You mentioned giving them a seat at the table with these conversations. Is giving the public a seat at that same table with having responses and dialogue between the officers also a way that we can help bridge some of these gaps here and kind of change some of the tide here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about now changing departmental culture. Chief Taylor, I want to circle back to you here. How do you create a culture that actively and continually seeks out any unbecoming behavior? I know you had mentioned before that there's already this system in place with IMPD, and a lot of officers want to do the right thing and speak. But as a chief, we always hear it starts at the top. How do you keep creating that environment where officers feel the need to, or feel empowered to speak up and have their voices heard during all this?
Yeah, well, part of it is just continuing to have those conversations with officers, whether it's the officer that's in the academy or the officer that's just on the street, those who have been on for just a few years, or some of those dinosaurs like me that have been around for a long time. We got to keep those lines of communication open. But it's also a two-way street, right? Not only is it the officers that need to look out for one another, but I have to know from the community what's going on. There's been times that I've had conversations with the community that has said great things about officers, but we never knew about it. That's a huge morale boost. We get it from time to time, most of the time you'll get the complaint. And as much as I don't like hearing the complaints, I know that many of them are going to be valid, and we're going to have to listen to those things and try to find ways to make sure we change it. When my predecessor, Chief Roach, re-implemented the beat policing, making that effort to go from zone to beat policing, I think that was certainly a move in the right direction, because it allows our officers to get out there and have those conversations with the community, the people that they're protecting. And those conversations have to happen, right? I remember saying to him, you know, this is a great idea, but we have to make sure that the right officers are the ones out there continuing to that by having those conversations. Doesn't matter if we close that beat in, but you're not willing to get out of your car and talk to the people that you're trying to protect. But the great thing is, I think that's happening. I think it's happening more and more. I think officers realize the benefit to that, not only for their safety, but getting information from the community that helps them to drive that crime down. So again, all of this stuff seems to come around to communication, but I think we all understand how important that really is.
All right, yeah, you mentioned a couple of things there, and it's your previous point with Beershell too also mentioned communication, where that, you know, you didn't really understand, or a watershed moment for you is when you saw the protests here and the hurt in people's eyes. All that, again, is a form of communication. So I'm curious, with the beat policing, is there any additional steps the department will be taking as well to make sure that we're having important conversations between the department and the public, not only for when it comes to either morale or helping to solve a crime, but also to being able to express maybe any confusion, any hurt that's going on, so we can remedy that problem before it becomes a larger problem?
Sure, we have the community conversations with various groups, and I think that's helpful. But I remember working the street and stopping by and talking with people. It's those small conversations, those conversations with the really young kids, the conversations with people who are middle-aged and people who are older, just sitting down and talking. Those are, they don't have to be any particular time frame. It's just a matter of getting out of your car and having a conversation and get to learn something about somebody. I've thought about possibly encouraging officers that maybe grew up in areas where they didn't have the luxury of having a whole lot of diversity, having, let's say, for a better word, a Gold Star families, whether it's in the Black community, Hispanic community, Burmese, wherever, families that would be willing to take an officer in, have a meal or two with them, and really just explain what life is like, allow them to see how other people live and how other people relate. It's still on the beginning stages of it, but I'm hoping it's something that I'll be able to work out with Rick and others to see if that might be a benefit.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, you know, Chief Taylor, you were talking about the relational aspect of this component. Also, I want to talk to you, Rick Snyder. I'm going to get back to you, Chief, in a second. But Rick, I want to ask you, you know, you lead the Fraternal Order of Police. You represent around 3,000 officers. What is the sentiment? We talked a little bit about morale, but what is the sentiment right now among those men and women who you represent, who care about this community, who are committed to protecting and serving? Do they feel as though they have a voice, a real voice, in this conversation that is taking place right now?
Well, it's an utter frustration from our officers, because you have women and men who have voluntarily stepped forward to serve their fellow neighbors and to risk their lives to protect them. And while we are the first to say it's vitally important that we hear the grievances, the concerns, the pain of the very people that we're out here serving and living amongst and working amongst, it's also important that we hear those same concerns and grievances and thoughts from our officers. That's the only way we'll make it forward in this whole equation. And I am a strong proponent of greater interactions in the non-law enforcement mode, so that we see one another as fellow human beings. Again, not the complexion of our skin, not our gender, not where we live, not our status, but just fellow human beings and caring for one another. And in doing that, like the Chief has set forward, those are the kinds of things we advocate for. Here is your challenge. We need folks to come out and do ride-alongs with officers. It is enlightening to everyone who does it. And to a person, they will tell you, man, we went from run to run to run there was really no downtime. That is the great impediment to being able to get out of the car, sit on somebody's front porch, and have a conversation with them. Because oftentimes we're so short-staffed, overwhelmed with runs and violence, that we can't make that happen. So that's why it's so critically important. We cannot fall into the trap of cutting resources to officers, because the first thing that goes is training. The very number one thing we all, I think, agree we need more of. And then also the ability to have the time to be able to interact in that manner. That is the number one impediment to good, strong community policing efforts, and is resources and the staffing to be able to do that. I'm confident that we can get there. We as an organization will always be supportive of that. We have advocated for it now for years now, to get people around the table so that we can not only hear and listen to one another, but actually see from someone else's perspective that's different than ours. So again, we can relate. It's all about relational interactions with one another and seeing each other as human beings.
I think you brought up a good point, Rick. It's about the relational interaction between different entities on both sides, stepping outside of the construct of the policing mindset or model or situation.
This is important for us.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about trust and relational and building those relations. You know, we all know that divisiveness, racial stereotyping, all of those things are taught. They're taught behaviors. You know, when we talk about, like you mentioned, Rick, looking at each other for the content of our character, not the color of our skin. You know, the civil rights movement was based on the principle that it's peaceful protesting because I'm going to do unto others as I would want them to do unto me. And that's how you break through a lot of that racial divide. When we talk about our young people and establishing trust, Jack Brewer had a chance to interview. He was such a fascinating person because not only does he have all those other credentials, but he's also one of the national spokespeople for PAL. And I'm hearing from a lot of people in our community here in Indianapolis about what's going to happen with our PAL program, because we know, especially in our schools, their resource officers too, when a young person who doesn't have somewhere to go after school can get involved in a police athletic league and have not only a positive role model, but also begin to build those relationships with the officers in their communities, that starts to build trust at a very foundational relational level. And that can also, I'm wondering whether or not it can speak to getting our young people involved in being police officers so that we start to break some of those negative feelings between the community and police. I want you guys to talk to me a little bit about that. I'm going to start with you, Chief, because I want to know what's happening with our PAL program. Do we still have the funding for it? A lot of parents have contacted me and wondered are they going to be able to have PAL once we get past the social distancing?
Yeah. So PAL does exist. It's very, very near and dear to my heart. I was commander over community affairs at one point. That is where PAL was housed. The great thing is we've got Major Ida Williams kind of oversees that now. She's got some great ideas. She actually worked with me there. Very progressive with it. Captain Brownie Coleman is still out there. Okay. He's been around for a long time, so PAL is still there. Now I'll admit it doesn't have as big a footprint as I would like it to have. Some of that has to do with the number of officers that we utilize, because we do have to have officers on the street. But the PAL officer is a unique person. They're the ones that understand the young people. They're the ones probably in reality, if you've dealt with a PAL officer in the past, if you have any inkling of being a police officer, it's probably because you had a conversation with them. They do a fantastic job of that. But it's not only the PAL officers. We have plenty of officers throughout the districts that make those kind of efforts. But PAL still exists. It's never gone away. It's strong. It's got a good funding stream right now. The only thing that's kind of kept it down is the COVID. But I look, as we pass through that, I look forward to that coming out, and the kids will be involved in a number of sports and be able to build those.
Well, that's good. I can respond now to some people who have asked about that. Nia Hyatt, I want to bring you in because we had a chance to talk a little bit about where we've come now, what we'd like to see moving forward. Is there anything in terms from your perspective of a young college student, someone who's an activist who's getting involved in this? Do you feel as though there are voices that are not being heard and that there's maybe some issue that's being left off the table at this point?
Yeah, so My friends and I started this non-for-profit over the summer called Black Women in Charge. And I think it's really important that we called it Black Women in Charge because oftentimes our perspective is left out of the table. We don't have a say in what happens. So I really did enjoy the many conversations I got to have with Chief Taylor, Major Ida Williams, Deputy Chief Kendall Adams, and also all of the officers that we got to talk to at the training academy. And it really did enlighten me to more of a perspective. After I already did try and take their perspective, you really got to talk to them or even experience for yourself, like you said, in ride-alongs, Rick. I will say though that bias does need to be addressed on both sides in order for us to make progress. It shouldn't be divisive. How we keep saying, I don't like divisive politics, honestly. That's why Black Women in Charge does not identify with a political party. I personally want young officers. I want young officers to start the recruitment process. I want Black officers to start the recruitment process. I want women officers. But the issue at hand right now, and why they can't yet, is because there is lack within the police department that needs to be addressed. I mean, if you look at it around our whole nation, there's a lack of standardized things within the police department. And if things were more standardized, centralized around a focus that would improve the department, I would say just how Chief Taylor was talking about, we need, we revised the policy and now we have an annual review. The policy allowed to be reviewed at least annually. I think that it needs to be reviewed before something else goes wrong. We need to take preventative measures in the policy. So for example, when it comes to accountability in the discipline matrix, there is the definitions of the certain degrees of violations. And so then that's how they're rated within the matrix. And the definitions of those violations most definitely need improvement because what I found in just the first 3-4 definitions, a large focus is on the image of the police department and not on the effect on a human life or on a human's rights. And when the police department is supposed to be protecting us in that manner, then their definitions for violating their rules should be focused on human rights and human life. Another thing that I noticed is that their discipline gets removed from their record, and being police officers that are protecting our community, after 2 years, their discipline should not be removed from their record. We should be able to see a full conclusive history of how they've acted within the police department and other police departments. One other thing I would say is when it comes to the no-knock warrant, I think that's a great improvement. I don't want to be all negative at all. I did see in the new use of force policy a lot of great improvements when it comes to more clear, concise language and proportionality. But for example, in the search and seizure section of the general orders, there is what is called a protective sweep, and officers are allowed to do that anytime they feel threatened. They're allowed to go and look into like the compartments of someone's car. They don't need a warrant for it, or they don't need to ask for permission. But the issue in this is that there's no exact limitations and clear defining rules in how you can perform a protective sweep. So in talking to officers, I found out that they're actually allowed to perform protective sweeps after they are done handling someone at a traffic stop and they're free to go. They're still then allowed to go do a protective sweep. At that point, it's not protective. At that point, it's harassment of the person's rights, to be completely honest. And another thing in that protective sweep is that, another thing in the protective sweep, besides it just being, besides the possibility of it being a harassment, it's the fact that some officers do use it properly. Not every officer misinterprets their training, misinterprets the policy, but some officers do. And when it comes back to addressing those biases, we need to understand, and the police department especially needs to understand that most of the biases aren't just, the implicit biases aren't just on race, but rather they're on power. They're on abuse of power and that going to someone's head. So it's really hard or it's impossible to say that all officers are going to act according to their training in every given situation, there needs to be an ethics in policing so that they act morally and they don't let the power go to their head, so that they act abusive to the population that they're serving.
Okay, thank you. That was very well said, and I don't know if anyone wants to respond to that, but I'm going to open it up to see if someone wants to respond to what she just said, and then Debbie, I'm going to send over to you.
I think the chief was going to say something, and then we're going to get to Tanya after the chief has a chance to respond. Chief?
Well, excellent ideas. I believe, well, one thing with the protective sweeps and those things, I don't know if Nia had an opportunity to go through any of our training, but obviously weapons sometimes are found and can be used against officers. I would agree, if it's after a stop and people are getting ready to go their own ways, then yeah, that would be something to look at if we were doing those sweeps then. But I think for the most part, our officers are abiding by the training and they're trying to be safe. That's not, maybe there needs to be more explanation that comes along with that so people understand that we're not trying to be abusive, we're not trying to be jerks about things, but again, we don't know the people that we're dealing with. That doesn't mean you have to treat them like they're a criminal, but you do have to be cautious. So, but something we can certainly look at. It would be interesting to see the public's reaction to those things, how it made them feel, and if there's different things that we could do. We've talked about communication. Maybe it's a matter of communicating something first or during or after.
It's a good conversation. I'm enjoying this very much. I want to go back to Tanya. And Tanya, when we were talking before, we were imagining the force of the future. I felt like I had to cut you off a little quicker than I wanted to, because you were making some very good points about what the police force can and do in the future to be more effective, to be better represented in the community. Go back if you can and bring back some of those points, because I thought you were making good ones and I wanted to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I will go back, and I think Tony sort of touched on this earlier, but the trust, I mean, it's, when we talk about the community policing piece, I think that is huge. And I think, I don't want us to underscore the trauma right now that the African-American community is dealing with as in the history of trauma, from slavery to Jim Crow to now when you turn on, the news or social media or wherever you're getting your information, it's almost on a weekly basis that a Black man or a Black person is being killed by the police. And so that creates a sense of trauma. I have a 16-year-old daughter that doesn't even want to go out of the house because of what she has experienced over the last 3 months over the summer. And so, that's a huge issue right now that we have to address. It's not as simple as relationship building because you can't skip over that trauma part. And so that's something that we're grappling with in our work, is how do we address that in order for us to have very healthy relationships with the police. And so, that's, one thing that I would just add to the discussion is the trauma piece is very real in our community. And it's something from a mental health standpoint that we actually need to address. The point that I was making earlier with respect to the reforms, and again, Indiana Black Expo is a member partner. We're a member organization of the African American Coalition of Indianapolis. And we've been advocating and we've been really working with IMPD since 2017 after Aaron Bailey with respect to a lot of the reforms. And, the point I mentioned earlier was, are these reforms that Chief Taylor has put into place, are they permanent? Meaning, are they, and again, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not going to hold myself out as one as it relates to criminal justice reform, but can they be codified in an ordinance? What happens with the sheriff's department? I'm assuming this is just IMPD. So those are some of the questions in some of the conversations that are taking place now is there a way? And although we appreciate Chief Taylor and the fact that, he can vouch for the leadership that's in place, but permanent reforms is something that we would like to see put in place.
Thank you very much. I appreciate those thoughts. And you know, you talked about the trauma that your daughter's experiencing and she doesn't even want to come out of her house. And I would say that all of us anchor people in the studio right now, and the people who watch our news are traumatized by that as well. Yeah. I mean, there's just, it's a hard business when those kinds of things happen. It's a hard business anyway, but I appreciate what you're saying about how your daughter's feeling, because so many of us feel like just somewhat traumatized by.
And I want to say too, that's a good point, Debbie, because you and I have talked about that as well. And I want to say that it's also the responsibility of us as the media. And we're going to take that, because we have to be sensitive to the images that we show, how many times we show them, what we choose to do with them, and the context with which we present them. Exactly. I have talked to so many young African-American young women, and not just African-American, but just young women and men in general, who I don't think sometimes we realize the impact of how we present certain things and what it's having. And some young people will say, well, why do you guys have to show this so many times? And that's a good question. Maybe we show a picture, but I think that this is a good conversation, because it's a good self-check for us too.
I agree.
You know, because we have to be very responsible with how we use the medium and the power of the medium. And it has to be done with the utmost integrity, the utmost ethics, and the utmost care and concern for our viewers.
Totally agree.
I should say I think we're all awakened in so many different ways. We've been challenged, you know, not just law enforcement or people in power, but us here in media as well. So we hope to answer that challenge. We hope that this conversation we're having and being thoughtful and bringing history and context creates that change that many people have demanded of us. So part of that conversation also includes our clergy. So I want to get back to you, Reverend Malachi Walker, here and talk about some of the things we heard earlier. So one thing I heard from Rick was not less policing, but better policing. And it seems like Nia Hyatt and Tanya are all emphasizing that too. So we're saying the same thing, but we're not always getting to the same results. So how do we get to that point of better policing from a religious leader's standpoint? What is it that we need to do as a community to get there?
I think I strongly believe that education is the #1 key for better policing, and in that area of education, and that's not just educating the police officers, but also educating the community. One of the things that I do at my organization for young boys, and I work with young boys between the age of 8 to 18, and during our summer camp, I make it a priority every year to educate our young men on what to do if they are stopped and pulled over by a police officer. And really, I have taken a lot of criticism by doing that, because some folks really believe that why are you educating them? You need to be educating the police officer, but it's a two-way street, and we educate each other. And when we educate each other, then we're going to survive. We're all going to go home safely. But one of the main things that we do at the camp, I'll take 2 days, and we do a lot of discussions. I take a lot of scenarios and a lot of current events that happen in the city, and we talk about them. But one of the things we do a lot of role playing and acting out. What if you are pulled over by a police officer? And we got different types of scenarios when you get pulled over. But these things are very important, because our young people need to be educated on what to do if they are pulled over. And they're going to survive. Everybody's going to go home safely. And but it's all about our young men and our women just being educated on what to do if they are pulled over, because you don't know what can happen. Nobody expect to driving down the street, and you get pulled over, and then next thing you know, somebody ends up dead. But if we're educated, then we know what to say, how to respond, and it's about a two-way street when it comes to respect for one another, and respect for law enforcement, and respecting the citizens that the laws that the police officers are work for. So it's about education, and it can be done if we all just take the time to really do it.
All right. Well, thank you all. I noticed, Rick, you were nodding your head. We want to let you guys go because we appreciate your time. We do not want to be disrespectful of the time that you've given us. But Rick, did you have something to add really quick? I saw you nodding. before we wrap?
Yeah, I just agree completely. I think it would go a long way for us to spend more time at a table talking about these issues, many of which, like Ms. Hyatt has brought up, where we then had the opportunity to respond and provide some more context to some of the things that she's finding. I think it's great that she's taken the time to go through and review those things. And I think when we have the opportunity to say, hey, and here's the context, here's the laws that we operate within on some of those different things, and the rules placed upon us, I think it can be very helpful. And to Reverend's point, you know, I strongly support that. The scenario-based kind of training is what we have to have for our officers, but I think we also have to have that perspective for the community as well. We don't talk about, hey, what are do's and don'ts during police-citizen interactions? We don't talk about what should you do and what should you not do during a traffic stop, because here's the perspective of the officer, but then have the citizen perspective say, yeah, and officer, here's what I'm feeling, here's what my safety concerns are, to where we bridge those gaps, see from different perspectives, and everybody remains safe. It's key, and we can do that. It's just going to take a deliberate action of doing things just like tonight, sitting down and hearing one another, and having that good, honest, straightforward communication. And again, out of love for one another, loving our neighbor, and loving something that's bigger than ourselves, so that we can take care of one another.
Well, amen. And I
Well
think that's
said.
a great place to leave it.
Yes.
Very good.
So I wanted to say thank you to all of you. We appreciate your care for our community. We appreciate your dedication. And we just appreciate you taking the time to talk with all of us and our viewers. God bless you all. Thank you so much. We appreciate
thank
you.
This was a great discussion.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
do
you,
it again sometime.
Yeah, we've made a promise and a pledge to you all to keep this conversation going, to look deeper into the issues in our community. So we'll make sure to live up to that promise. So please tune in to both CBS 4 and Fox 59. We'll have much more, several reports here coming for you in the next several weeks, keeping on top of this issue and making sure we're part of that solution.
And thank you to our viewers for
Yes.
sticking with us. Have a
Absolutely.
great night.
This is just the beginning.
Just the beginning. Thank you.